Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers as Lisa walked into my garage, her heels clicking against the concrete like a countdown timer. She was dressed to kill, black dress, red lipstick, the works. At 35, my wife still turned heads, and she knew it. "I'm having dinner with Derek tonight," she announced, checking her reflection in the chrome bumper of the '67 Mustang I was restoring. "Don't give me that look, Jake." I wiped my hands on a rag, studying her face. "What look?" "That controlling husband look. It's just dinner with an old friend." Derek Morrison, her college ex. The guy who'd been sliding back into her life like oil under a garage door. Slow, persistent, and leaving stains everywhere he touched. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. "Have fun catching up." She seemed surprised by my easy agreement. "Really? You're not going to make a scene?" "Why would I? It's just dinner, right?" Something flickered in her eyes. Disappointment? She'd wanted a fight. "Right. Just dinner." After she left, I called my apprentice Tommy. Kid was 22, loyal as a golden retriever, and had eyes like a hawk. "Tommy, I need you to do me a favor tonight." 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. Tommy's text made my blood run cold. "Boss, they're at Romano's. Real cozy. She's wearing his jacket now." I drove to Romano's and parked across the street. Through the window, I watched my wife laugh at Derek's jokes, her hand covering his on the table. When they left together, she didn't even glance at her own car. I followed them to Derek's apartment complex. The lights in his third-floor window stayed on until 2 a.m. That's when something inside me died, and something else was born. I spent the rest of the night preparing. By dawn, Lisa's suitcases were packed and waiting by the front door. The divorce papers I'd downloaded and printed sat on the kitchen table like a declaration of war. When she crept in at 6 a.m., hair disheveled and reeking of his cologne, she froze. "Jake? What's all this?" I looked up from my coffee, voice calm as still water. "Your bags. Thought I'd save you the trouble. You can't be serious, it was just dinner?" I stood up slowly. Funny. Dinner usually ends before midnight, and it definitely doesn't require staying at someone else's apartment. Her face went white. "You followed me?" "I didn't have to. Tommy saw you two at Romano's. Small town, Lisa. People talk." She tried to salvage it, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Jake, please. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "You're right," I said, sliding the papers toward her. "It didn't mean anything. Neither did our marriage, apparently." That was just the beginning. Within hours, the news spread through our small, upstate New York town like wildfire. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, the unofficial town crier, had seen Lisa's dramatic exit and posted about it on the neighborhood app. By noon, everyone knew. But Lisa wasn't going down without a fight. She launched a counter-offensive that would have impressed a military strategist. Suddenly, I was the villain. The controlling husband who'd driven his poor wife into another man's arms. Her best friend Sarah, who co-owned the real estate agency with Lisa, spread rumors about my anger issues and jealous rages. My garage started losing customers. People who'd been friends for years crossed the street to avoid me. Even my regular poker game dissolved when 3 of the 5 players decided they didn't want to associate with that psycho who stalked his wife. That's when I visited my old friend Bull Martinez at his boxing gym. Bull was 43, built like a brick wall, and had known me since high school. He took one look at my face and poured 2 whiskeys. "They're destroying you," he said simply. "I know." "You gonna take it lying down?" I drained my glass. "What would you do?" Bull grinned, and it wasn't a nice expression. "I'd remind them why they should have left sleeping dogs lie, but I'd be smart about it." "Smart how?" You want to win a war, Jake. You don't just throw punches. You use their own weapons against them. That night, I started planning. Derek Morrison thought he was untouchable. Successful businessman, flashy BMW, penthouse apartment. But success built on lies has cracks, and I was about to become a wrecking ball. I started with research, public records, business filings, social media. Derek's construction company had some interesting irregularities in their safety reports. His BMW, leased, and he was 3 payments behind. His penthouse, subletting illegally. But the real gold mine was his business partner, Frank Russo. One phone call to Frank mentioning Derek's new relationship with a married woman, and suddenly Derek's professional life became very complicated. The first crack appeared when Derek's BMW got repossessed outside Romano's during his lunch date with Lisa. The second came when his landlord discovered the illegal subletting and started eviction proceedings. But I was just getting warmed up. Lisa's real estate career was built on image and connections, so I started dismantling both. A few carefully placed calls to her clients mentioning her personal difficulties and unprofessional behavior, and suddenly her listings started drying up. The beauty was, I never lied. I just shared information that was already public knowledge. The confrontation I'd been waiting for came on a Thursday night. Derek showed up at my garage, probably expecting to intimidate the small-town mechanic. "You need to back off," he said, trying to loom over me. I kept working on the Mustang's engine. Back off what? You know what? The calls to my business partners, the landlord tip-off. This harassment has to stop. I straightened up slowly, wrench still in my hand. Derek was taller, but I had 40 pounds of muscle on him and hands that could crush walnuts. Harassment. I smiled. I'm just sharing information with concerned parties. Like how you told my wife that her husband was holding her back. Like how you've been planning this little affair for months. His face went red. That's not true? I stepped closer. Derek, here's some free advice. When you decide to destroy a man's life, make sure you can handle the consequences. He tried to get in my face, but I'd been in real fights. This pretty boy had soft hands and a glass jaw. One look at my expression, and he backed down. This isn't over, he muttered. No, I agreed. It's not. The next phase required more finesse. Lisa and Sarah had been spreading poison about me for weeks, turning our social circle against me. Time to return the favor. I'd always been good with people, and I'd lived in this town my whole life. I had connections they'd forgotten about. The mailman who knew about Derek's overdue bills, the bank teller who'd processed Lisa's suspicious cash deposits, the restaurant owner who'd seen their innocent dinners turn into groping sessions in the parking lot. The truth has a way of spreading faster than lies, especially when it's more interesting. Within a week, the narrative started shifting. People began questioning Lisa's version of events. Why had she been so secretive about her friendship with Derek? Why was she suddenly making large cash deposits right before asking for a divorce? The final blow came when I discovered Sarah's real motivation for helping Lisa destroy me. 2 years ago, I'd refused to work on Sarah's husband's classic Corvette. Not because I couldn't do the job, but because Mark was a drunk who'd already wrapped one car around a tree. I'd told him to get sober first, then we'd talk. Sarah had never forgiven me for that humiliation. She'd been waiting for a chance to get revenge, and Lisa's affair was the perfect weapon. But Sarah had made one crucial mistake. She'd been embezzling from the real estate agency to fund her gambling addiction. Lisa had been covering for her, and those cash deposits were Sarah's way of paying her back. One anonymous tip to the state real estate board, and both their licenses were under investigation. The confrontation with my former friends came at Murphy's Bar on a Saturday night. 5 guys I'd known since high school, led by my former best friend Mike Patterson, Mrs. Patterson's son. "You've gone too far, Jake," Mike said as they surrounded my table. "Lisa's a good woman. You're destroying her over your own insecurities." I looked around at their faces, righteous anger mixed with mob mentality. These men had been at my wedding, had celebrated with me, had called me brother. A good woman? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mike, your good woman has been planning to leave me for 6 months. She's been hiding money, meeting with divorce lawyers, and screwing her ex behind my back. But sure, I'm the bad guy for not rolling over and taking it. That's not what she told us, said Jim Crawford, my former poker buddy. I pulled out my phone and played a recording, Lisa and Sarah discussing how to maximize the divorce settlement and make Jake look unstable. I'd gotten it from Lisa's own phone, which she'd carelessly left unlocked. The silence that followed was deafening. Where did you get that? Mike demanded. Does it matter? You want to destroy me based on lies, but when I present evidence, suddenly you're concerned about my methods? One by one, they backed down. But the damage was done. These friendships were over, burned to ash by betrayal and mob mentality. You're not the man we thought you were, Mike said as they left. No, I agreed. I'm exactly the man you made me. The final act played out at the annual Chamber of Commerce dinner, the social event of the year for our little town's business community. Lisa and Derek had planned to make their public debut as a couple, showing everyone how happy they were together. I had other plans. I'd spent weeks preparing, calling in every favor, connecting every dot. The presentation I'd prepared was a masterpiece of public humiliation, backed by irrefutable evidence. When they called for community announcements, I stood up. I'd like to thank everyone for their support during my recent personal difficulties, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. Especially those who rushed to judgment without knowing all the facts. Lisa went pale. Derek started to stand, but Bull Martinez, my guest for the evening, put a heavy hand on his shoulder. See, I learned something important recently. When people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. I clicked to my first slide, a timeline of Lisa's affair, complete with restaurant receipts, hotel records, and text message screenshots. My wife told me she was having just dinner with an old friend. Turns out, dinner lasted 6 months and cost about $15,000, money she embezzled from her own business account. The room erupted. Lisa tried to run, but Sarah grabbed her arm, hissing something in her ear. But wait, there's more. I clicked to the next slide. Her business partner Sarah has been running a gambling operation out of their real estate office, using client information to facilitate illegal betting on property sales. Sarah's husband Mark stood up so fast, he knocked over his chair. What the hell are you talking about? Ask your wife about the $50,000 she owes to Tony Marconi's organization. Ask her why she needed my wife to help launder money through fake property transactions. The next 20 minutes were chaos. Accusations flew, marriages imploded, and business partnerships dissolved in real time. The police were called, not by me, but by 3 different people who'd suddenly realized they were victims of fraud. When the dust settled, Lisa and Derek were facing criminal charges. Sarah was in handcuffs. And I was standing in the middle of it all, untouched and vindicated. But I wasn't done yet. The final confrontation came at our house, the house Lisa had been planning to take in the divorce. She showed up with Derek and a lawyer, demanding I stop this madness. You've destroyed everything, she screamed at me from the front porch. Our marriage, my career, my life. Are you happy now? I looked at this woman I'd loved for 8 years, this stranger who'd been planning my destruction while sleeping in my bed. Happy? I considered the question seriously. No, Lisa, I'm not happy. I'm free. I loved you, she said, tears streaming down her face. I made one mistake. One mistake? I laughed. Lisa, you made 1,000 small choices that led to this moment. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you looked me in the eye and made me feel crazy for suspecting the truth. This isn't about one mistake. This is about who you really are. Derek stepped forward, trying to play the protector. You're a sick man, Jake. This obsession... I cut him off. Derek, you're facing embezzlement charges, your business is bankrupt, and your wife left you when she found out about the affair. Maybe focus on your own problems. The lawyer cleared his throat. My client is prepared to offer a settlement. No settlement. I handed him a folder. Countersuit for fraud, emotional distress, and theft. Lisa can keep what she brought into the marriage, her clothes and her debt. Everything else stays with me. You can't do this, Lisa whispered. I already did. As they drove away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over, and I'd won. Not because I was better than them, but because I'd been willing to fight with their own weapons. My phone rang. It was Tommy, calling from the garage. Boss, Mrs. Henderson wants to know if you can look at her Buick tomorrow. Says she heard you're the most honest mechanic in town. I smiled, the first genuine smile in months. Tell her I'll take a look. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something better. Sometimes you have to become the villain to expose the real monsters. And sometimes the only way to win is to show people exactly who they're dealing with. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained something more valuable, the truth about who she really was. I'd lost friends, but I'd learned who my real allies were. I'd lost my reputation as the nice guy, but I'd earned something better. Respect. As I walked back into my house, I felt lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding. But tonight I was going to enjoy the silence.